All right. The format for this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcement, a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker tonight is Brent.
Evening, I'm Brent. I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here, and I want to thank Chris and Mark for asking me to speak, and welcome the new guys back there. I'm glad you guys are here, and really hope you guys are mangled enough to give this thing a try, because that's what it took for me. You know, I had to be really, really beaten down. 10 minutes is a very short time to get through some stuff, but, you know, I got sober in 1995 the first time. And I found myself living in a house with a mattress, a TV. I think I had a box spring, not sure. Was being evicted and had no place to go. Didn't know about Alcoholics Anonymous, didn't know what it could do, but I knew I needed help. So I called my father and I said, I need help. You know, I have a drinking problem. And he goes, I know, son. You know, and I thought I was hiding it from everybody. And he lived 3 hours away. He was there in 3 hours and about 5 minutes. And took me to a detox in West LA. I went through that detox. At that point, this is 1995, they gave me a sponsor. And I did the deal. You know, I dug in. I was at that detox every day for about 7 years. I was that annoying AA guy that was going to save all my friends, right? You know, and I was, you know, just everything about me was AA, and I was going to stay sober, and I was that guy, right? And my life started getting big. You know, I met a girl. She wasn't that crazy. She liked me. She came from a good family, and so I thought, you know what, I need to marry this girl, right? And then I need to have kids, and then I need to buy a house and a bigger house, and work really hard and die at my desk. That was kind of like the format that I thought I had to live by, right? And I did all those things except the dying part, you know. I got married, I had a baby, I had a second baby, I had a third baby, I bought a house, I bought a bigger house. You know, life was good. Coaching my kids in soccer, you know, doing all the dad things. Problem was that the life that AA gave me, and I give everything that is good in my life to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. But at that point in my life, all the things that Alcoholics Anonymous had given me, right, that life got in the way of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And I just slowly, or quickly, I guess, walked away from AA, you know. I would always say, you know, hey, I need to go to a meeting, you know. I told my wife on our first date that I was an alcoholic. My kids had never seen me drink. And 21 years later, it wasn't a matter of if I was going to drink, it was when I was going to drink, right? Because I started doing those alcoholic things that we do, you know, just dry. I was a forest fire waiting to happen, you know. And one night, it was the anniversary of my mother's death. I decided a drink sounded good. I had a normie wife we had entertained in the family a bunch of times, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a drink tonight. And I walked over to the cabinet, pulled down that Costco big old jug of whiskey, and I took a big gulp, you know. And nothing happened, right? I didn't, like, go to the dope man. I didn't go to the bar. I didn't go to the strip club. Just nothing happened, right? But I can tell you the next day, you know, that allergy that we talk about, that kicked in, you know, and the next day, all I could think about that whole day was that drink I was going to have at 5 o'clock, you know. I had the cup picked out, the coffee mug, the black coffee mug, so no one could see what was in it. And I had that drink at 5 o'clock. And by the end of the week, I was drinking about a fifth a day, and I was missing work, right? And that set off like a couple year, about a 20-month run, in and out of hospitals, in and out of detoxes. Could not stop drinking to save my life. I was coming to these meetings loaded. I was in that place that I hate to be in, and I've seen people in it, and I think it's the worst place to be, and I'm drinking against my will. I don't want to drink, but I'm drinking, you know, and I can't stop, right? I would go into these meetings and I would tell you guys that I wanted to stop. I would tell you what I know about Alcoholics Anonymous. I would tell you I had 21 years, and I would tell you all these things, right? And I just wanted the refresher course, just like knock the rust off me, remind me what I'm supposed to do, and I'm on my way. I can get another 21 years, right? But that wasn't going to work for me, because I could not get my footing to save my life. During that 21 or 20-month period, that house that I bought, that bigger house up on the hill in PV, I wasn't welcome in that house. That job I had for 21 years, thank you very much, for 21 years, that was gone, right? Those 3 beautiful daughters that are my world weren't speaking with me. They had to protect themselves from their dad, They didn't want to see him die, I had nothing, I had nothing. I was living in my warehouses that I sell industrial real estate, and I was living in vacant warehouses. I was living in hospitals a lot, detoxes. I was using those detoxes as a way of just getting better, getting some meals in me, right? But that obsession to drink and that allergy that's kicked off was just too much, I remember one time I was in a detox down at Hoag Hospital in Newport. I don't know how I got down there, but I was down there, and I went through the whole 7 days. I was feeling better. I was eating solid food, solid poops, everything. I was ready to go, right? I was on my way, right? And the last day, I decided I'm going to take a drink, right? And didn't tell anybody, and that obsession kicked in, and I was ready to go, and it takes them forever to give you the papers when they're checking you out of that place and give you your phone and all that stuff, but I was just, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. As soon as they give it to me, I buzzed out the door, those double doors of the hospital, and my phone rang, and I picked it up, and it said Hoag Hospital, and I go, oh, crap, and I picked it up, and I go, hello, and they go, have you left yet? And I said, yeah, I'm in an Uber. I'm on my way to, I was standing right outside the double doors, right? And they said, oh, damn, you left your shoes here. And I looked down, and I was barefoot. I didn't go back in and get my shoes. I walked a mile down the hill to a Bevmo to get my drink, because that obsession was so great that I could not fight it on my own, The changing point for me in this sobriety that I have right now, and kind of the miracle moment for me, was that surrender, where I walked into a meeting that I'd been going to a lot and knew a lot of people in. And I raised my hand, and my share was different this time. My share was a simple. I wasn't telling you what I knew about Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't telling you what I had done. I just raised my hand. I simply said, my name is Brent. I'm an alcoholic. I can't stop drinking, and I'm scared, right? And that was that surrender point. From that point on, I acted new. I was new. And that's what I needed. I needed to be new again, brand new, a newcomer, right? And the men in Alcoholics Anonymous, after that meeting, 2 guys in particular sit right across from me. I stare at them every meeting. They got up and they said, we can help you, And your main speaker tonight was one of those men, And he said, you want to meet me tomorrow at Starbucks? And I think he was just trying to see if I would show up, like how in was I? And I said, yeah, and I showed up, and we talked for about an hour, and he says, I'm not taking new sponsees right now, but I think I can help you, and I'll work with you. And we sat down, and we went through that book, line by line, 2 men sitting across from a table, sharing and doing those steps, and my life started to get better immediately. But I had to be new, right? I had to be new, and I had to give in to what this thing gives, I can tell you that those beautiful daughters that I have, they're sitting back at my place right now waiting for me. That marriage didn't end up working out. I'd held that woman hostage long enough. But I have a beautiful life today. I have a beautiful girlfriend in recovery. I have a relationship with my daughters. I got a job in the career that I love, that I've been doing for 30 years. without this, I know I would be dead, you know. And that's why I led off by saying, you know, you guys, I hope you're mangled enough, because I needed to be beaten down to that state of reasonableness where I would do this thing to the best of my ability at the time. That was the only thing that was going to change me, you know. And I had to do this thing like my life depended on it. And as soon as I acted as soon as I let go of that ego and I finally surrendered to this thing, it was time for me to start doing the work, you know. And I can tell you that, again, I can stand here in front of all you guys and say that I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's given me everything that is beautiful in my life, you know. Every single thing that I have in my life, I owe to Alcoholics Anonymous, because without it, I wouldn't have a relationship with those girls. I wouldn't be the father that I know I can be, right? I can tell you today that I'm highly involved with Alcoholics Anonymous. I go to meetings regularly. I sponsor men, take them through the book, giving them what was so freely given to me. I have relationships with other alcoholics. I talk to about 3 or 4 of them a day. I'm heavily involved with H&I. I have panels. I do that kind of thing, you know. The trick is that I have to do it every day, because as soon as I start to rest on those laurels, like it talks about in my book, I'm screwed, right? I can't stay clean on yesterday's shower. I have to do that every day. As soon as I wake up in the morning, I have to give everything to that higher power that I was able to find in this, you know. The biggest thing that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me, and I'll finish with this, is I thank Alcoholics Anonymous for giving me that God, you know, because left to my own devices, I would have never gotten there, ever, right? Because I had this resentment against church. It was stupid, right? It was because I didn't understand it, right? How much time do I have? So Alcoholics Anonymous did give me that God, and I thank all of you for being here every day for the newcomers and for keeping the doors open for guys like me that walk away from you and don't do this deal on a daily basis, you know. I'll be here as long as God allows me to be here, and as long as I can keep the mentality that I'm going to do this every single day. So thanks for letting me share, guys.
Now, let me see here. Now, our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming MC Hammer.
My name is Mark Christopher Hammer. I'm an alcoholic. It's true. Yeah. I love AA, and I love what happened right before the break. I love that stuff. Some people say, I don't want to get involved in the politics of AA. I say, bring it on when people are passionate about recovery, and they maybe have a different viewpoint than me, but they care. That's what's important to me. So I don't care if your opinion's a little bit different than mine, as long as you're passionate and you come from how you understand the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. So this is my hometown, Manhattan Beach. I used to play Little League right out there. When I was 12 years old, I was on the Orioles, and I'd never pitched before, and they said, go ahead and pitch, and I pitched. And I pitched a 1-0 shutout. And that was probably the highlight of my life until I got sober. It was all downhill from about 12. I grew up here in Manhattan Beach. My parents were dysfunctionally normal, like normal human beings that had issues. You know, they were. I knew I was loved. I have one brother. My parents were married their entire life. They had plenty of problems, but they were married. We weren't rich. Manhattan Beach was a different town a long time ago. But it was basically a loving family. So problem for me is, like, you know, my mom told me, you were such a happy kid until you're like 6 years old, you know? And then life started happening. I had to interact with kids, and the older I got, the harder it got for me, you know. Then you get to like junior high school, 12, 13, you start thinking about girls or whatever, and That comes in, and you go to bigger schools and different people, and it was hard, man. I mean, it looked okay on the outside for the most part, but like, I remember before I started high school, I would have nightmares about going to high school. What are people going to think of me? How are they going to treat me? You know, stuff like that. And I didn't really have any real good reason for that. That's just who I was. And early in my freshman year, my friend and I were at his parents' house. They weren't home, and they had a liquor cabinet, and we took a little bit out of each bottle. We put it in like a fruit jar, and we shook it up, and we guzzled it, and it tasted horrible, but it did the job, man. It changed the way I felt. And what I remember about that is it's not like in my head I go, oh, I found the solution to life. But, you know, subconsciously, that's kind of what I thought. When I do this, I'm okay. When I do this, I'm okay. And I feel better than I do when I don't do it. Much better. The problem for me was, you know, consequences started happening within a couple of months. The first incident, I remember I was at a high school dance, and I got thrown out, and I was in a blackout, and people told me some things I did that I had no memory of. They were not nice things. They weren't horrible, but they were really embarrassing and stupid and impolite. And I was off to the races. But you know what? I was willing to pay that price, you know. And thank you, Brent. He did a great job. I love Brent. And I love, you know what I love about Brent is like he's an expert in carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I'll tell you, my opinion, it doesn't say this in any of our books, but if I've worked the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous thoroughly and I'm practicing the principles in all my affairs, I'm an expert in carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have a message to carry to the newcomer and anybody who's here who needs help. And also I have the ability to help people in the world because I'm practicing these principles. As my friend Louis, who I have to stare at this whole damn meeting, says, you know, what's important is living the program, right? I do that by practicing these principles in all my affairs. So anyways, you know, I went through this thing. I got arrested for weed when I was 17 at a concert at the LA Coliseum. But they let me go because I was under 18, blah, blah, blah. I got a DUI when I was 21. I did 5 days in county jail. That was interesting. Got another, it's so funny because actually, technically I didn't get a DUI. They never tested me. I went to a bar in Marina del Rey. I was living at my parents' house here in Manhattan Beach. I ended up in Huntington Park, if you know where that is, which is way east. And apparently I ran 4 stop signs in a residential neighborhood going 85 miles an hour. And when I showed up in court, the judge said to me, you weren't even drunk, and you put public safety at risk just without any care about anybody but yourself. 5 days in jail. The truth is, if they would have tested me and I would have tested positive at that time in the 70s, I would have got like a $500 fine. But I did 5 days in jail. Was that a good thing? I remember laying, you know, even then it took like 10 hours to process through there. And I remember laying on a bench with a towel over my face going, maybe I should watch my drinking a little bit, you know? And I'm the guy that somewhere in the LA Times when I was 19 or 20, my memory was in Dear Abby's column. She published the 20 questions that we have today, and I lied on it, and I still got 13 yeses. You know, and my thought is like, well, maybe I should watch this someday, you know? And so, but what happened is for me is like I tried to control my drinking by using other drugs, and it kind of worked for a while with marijuana. You know, I brought other stuff into the mix. I would go to school and then drop my early classes because I couldn't get up, et cetera, et cetera. In 1983 is really when things went downhill fast. I was living on Torrance Boulevard in Juanita over there in Redondo Beach. I got a DUI. I crashed into a parked car leaving a bar. I was only like a half mile from my house or my apartment. And I put my face through the windshield, and I got knocked out and I had to go to the hospital, et cetera. And I read the police report later, and when they come and the police came and woke me up, I said, I'm just taking a nap. I'll go home in a little while. They didn't buy that one. So anyways, after I got released from jail the next day, I went back to my apartment, and I had like half a bottle of vodka in the refrigerator, and I had a roommate, and I took it out and I showed him the bottle. You're talking about powerless over alcohol. I said, "This is killing me. I got to stop." And I poured it down the sink. I had a clear picture that I couldn't drink successfully, that I really needed to stop. And that's the most scary place to be, when you really know and you do it anyways. You guys been there? I think it's, yeah, a lot of shaking heads. And I didn't drink the next day. I didn't drink the day after that or the day after that, but the one after that I did. And in 1984, January I got a DUI. March I got a DUI. I didn't show up in court for that when I'd done 10 days on the one from January. In August of that year, the sheriff's department came and got me at 6:30 in the morning and took me away to county jail. And I got sentenced to 90 days in county jail. I did 30 days on that. And while I was in there, again, about 15 days in, a couple weeks, I had gone through the DTs in there, and I had a little bit of jaundice, and I can't think of the name right now, when you can't feel your extremities, it's like neuropathy. Yes, thank you. So I was physically addicted to alcohol also, not just in the sense that we talk about here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got healthy. I was eating, and like Brent talked about, and I saw that if I drank, I was going to either die or I was going to end up in prison. And so I absolutely committed to myself. I didn't even tell anybody else because it wasn't like I needed to. I am not drinking when I get out of here. And I might even, I had a court card on that the DUI in 1983. I went to one meeting and signed the rest myself. I said I might even go to one or two of those AA meetings if I need some help. And so the first day out, I go to eat at Joe's when I get off the bus, and then I go to my apartment. At noon, I'm going to go to Miguel's Burrito House, but Mr. B's Liquor is in between Miguel's Burrito House and my apartment, and I make a left turn into Mr. B's Liquor, and I buy a couple of 40 ounces of Old English. And the story, and it's on again. And actually, that was a good experience in a way, and I'll tell you why. Because then I realized that not only did I have to not drink, but I couldn't do it on my own. And I'd been to one meeting of AA. I didn't go there to get sober. I go there to fill out my court card. And as I said, I signed 5 of them myself. But I knew you guys were around. And in my DUI classes, it had been talked about a little bit. So I had an idea, but there was things I heard that I didn't like. I was offended that you talked about God, and I'd been forced to go there. And, the Constitution says you can't, separation of church and state, and how dare you impose this on me? And, I always had a reason to not do what I needed to do about my drinking. So anyways, at that point, I realized I can't stop myself, and the truth is, like 5 days after that, I got arrested again down in Long Beach and for another DUI. And this was 1984. For some reason, they didn't find me in their antiquated computer systems, and they cut me loose in the morning, but I was still drunk. They told me where my car was, but I don't really remember what they told me. I knew a general idea where it was, and if you know Long Beach, it was near the Long Beach Freeway and Pacific Coast Highway, which is not the best part of town. And then it was like on every corner there was the people on corners were either prostitutes or drug dealers. And I walked around forever looking for my car. And here's what I remember. I walked around this one building like 4 times, and I thought it was, I don't know why I noticed it, but I thought it was like a convalescent hospital or for like older people or something. And finally, my friend came and got me when we found my car. And I knew at that point, again, I didn't show up in court for this last one. I knew they're coming for me again. My parents had gotten wise to my ways. And I knew that my time was coming short, and I was getting sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I had so much pride, so much pride and fear of like exposing myself. We have so much pride. It's like, the book says, going on to an alcoholic death or, accepting spiritual help is not always an easy choice to make. It should be, right? Spiritual help versus an alcoholic death. I mean, it seems simple, but it isn't for us, because I've seen many people make the choice of an alcoholic death, and I nearly did myself. So I understand that. There's fear and there's pride. And finally, I went to my parents and they had offered to put me in rehab. I said, okay, I'll go. And we set it up so that I would go on December 31st, 1984. So having gone through the DTs in jail, I had my last drink and that December 29th, and I sweated out at home on December 30th because I didn't want to go through the DTs in public in case that happened. See, that's how much pride I had. Rather than getting maybe they would have had doctors there or medical help, but no, I just don't want anybody to see me. So anyways, my dad picks me up on New Year's Eve day, and we drive down there. And it's in Long Beach, and it's right off Pacific Coast Highway, just past the Long Beach Freeway. And it's that building that I'd noticed walking around. And, there's something hit me right then, like maybe I'm doing the right thing here, And I walked in there, like I said, it was New Year's Eve. And the guy told me there's plenty of beds. We had 5 people check out early today, and we don't think they were going to AA meetings. And he said, welcome to the reality of recovery. And so anyways, I went in there. I went to bed at like 7:30 on New Year's Eve. The next morning I woke up. They had a morning meeting there. I think it was at 7:30. I hadn't been up that early in a long time, unless it was from the night before. But I went to this meeting, and you guys had totally changed. You were so different. Now you were talking about the way I drank, the way I felt, the way I thought. I knew some of you drank like me, but I didn't know there was people that thought like me and felt like me, and were like baffled by my inability to stop or control my drinking. And you were like that too. And then you guys were talking about crazy stuff that you'd done that you should have been ashamed or embarrassed about, but you're laughing about it. And I go, oh, okay, this is my home, huh? This is where I belong. So I found a home in Alcoholics Anonymous. I found hope that day, on I guess day 2 of my sobriety, or 3. And I hung on tight, and I still had that pride and fear. I wanted what you guys had so bad. And yet, I mean, there's a couple of people here that were around me, and, when I first got out of rehab, maybe more than I'm seeing, but I know Cheryl and Alan, and Dennis. But I was so afraid to be vulnerable, So, I went through 2 rehabs trying to stay out of jail. The second one was a mental hospital. It was Camarillo State Mental Hospital, and that's where I met my first sober girlfriend, in a mental hospital. And so, she left early. She got kicked out because she came to see me. Blah blah blah. I love alcoholic drama, and I would go to meetings. I've got a lot of meetings, but I'd try to bring her, and I'd bring my friend's girlfriend, so I could put them on either side of me, and I'd look cool, and I'd always smile, and I would try to impress you with my drunkalogs or whatever knowledge I had. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But yeah, it was hard for me. And so I was going to tons of meetings, but I wouldn't get a sponsor. And it seems like it was months, but it really was only 4 or 5 weeks. And finally, when I saw myself doing things that were putting me in a position where I might have a drink, I asked this guy, Rashid, to be my sponsor. I'd watched him. He lived the program, He had a full-time job and a family, and he'd still be helping people all over the place, And he cared about them, and he supported them. And, I didn't understand everything he said. He would do some parables and stuff like that, but I was impressed, and he sat me down and he told me about Alcoholics Anonymous from his viewpoint. And he told me that the founders left 3 legacies: unity, recovery, and service, like 3 sides of the triangle. And he said, if you practice each one of those on a daily basis and you have an attitude of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, you're probably not going to have to drink today. In fact, the odds are really, really, really good. So I remember that. And, I just passed 14,000 days of sobriety recently. and yeah, it's cool. Here's the thing about it. It's like Brent said, I decided to drink, and we've had this discussion. He didn't really, and he agrees with me, I know. That's how we see it when we do it. I decided to drink again. If I'm an alcoholic, I don't decide to drink again. I'm compelled to drink again. If I am truly powerless over alcohol, the way the book describes it, it may seem like I'm deciding to drink, but I don't have a choice. If that's my phone. Oh my God. We practice progress, not perfection. I thought I turned it off. Anyways, we feel like we have a choice, or we're choosing to drink. But my belief, and it, nowhere in the book does it say that we have the ability to make that choice. I've been sober 38 years and 5.5 months or something, and I have no more choice today than I did when I walked in the door. The choice isn't mine. Nowhere in the book does it say we're restored to choice. Nowhere. It says in step 10 in the big book, it says the problem's been removed. And all I got to do is maintain my spiritual condition on a daily basis. So that's the good news, right? That's the good news. I always thought if I did stop drinking, I was going to have to fight it for the rest of my life. And I see these things on TV where they have like meetings and people, it's so hard, it's so hard, it's so hard. And yeah, it can be hard, but once we've established our sobriety and we've done the work here, it doesn't have to, life may be hard, but sobriety, staying sober, most of the time doesn't have to be hard. And that's my experience. And in the 10th step, like it says, maintaining our spiritual condition. Here's the thing, and Brent kind of talked about this a little bit because he was sober a long time. It says we have to maintain our spiritual condition. There's, it's attributed to this guy named Will Rogers. He said, you might be on the right track, but if you're not moving forward, you're still going to get run over. So, maintain means grow, in my experience. It doesn't mean stay where I am. And, so I wish it did sometimes. I just want to like chug along and do my thing. But that's not the case. I have to continue to grow along spiritual lines, and the great thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, it's like structured for me to do that, And when I work these steps with my sponsor, when I looked at those steps the first time was at that meeting I went to on a court card. I said, well, if I ever did this thing, I would not do that 4th and 5th thing or that 8th and 9th thing. And I don't really know about this God thing. So that's kind of like all the program pretty much, right? But when I came back and was here wanting to, it still seemed like every time I would take a step, that would be like limiting my freedom. That's how my twisted brain was looking at it. But what I discovered as I took each step was that each step I took gave me freedom. As soon as I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, then I didn't have to fight anymore. There was action for me to take. I don't have to fight that drink. I can take action, steps. As soon as I came to believe that my life was unmanageable, then I can ask somebody else to run it, namely a higher power. And I can accept input from people who have been where I've been, like direction. Doesn't mean they run my life for me, but they give me feedback. They help me see my own thinking, things like that. As soon as I turn my will and life over to the care of God, then I don't have to I can stop managing the 7.5 billion of you assholes, right? It's a much easier way to go, you know? And then the fourth step, oh my God. Well, as soon as I write that stuff and I can see my character defects, and my sponsor helps me see them, I can see why I might want to be willing to give those up and turn those over to a power greater than myself. Because here's the thing about it. I may be free from a drink, but I'm still a slave to those character defects, right? And it talks about it in the bedevilments on page 52. Prey to misery, you know, can't make relationships work. And that's the non-drinking alcoholic, you guys. It's not me when I'm drunk. It might be me when I'm drunk as well, but it's also me untreated. So as soon as I admit that, and then I can move on from there, you know. And I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I was sitting in the first real revelation I had in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was talking about, because it was a passage that was in the daily reflections. I think it was yesterday. Was it yesterday? Says, you know, the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive. It's open to all who earnestly seek. And I read that sitting in the cafeteria of Redgate Hospital when I was like 10 days sober because I had a problem with God. And all that told me is like, hey, man, come on in. All you got to do is earnestly seek. And what's the venue, or what's the tool for me to do that? Oh, these steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, when I got to the third step, my sponsor said to me, if you're not willing to do a fourth step as soon as we do this, then don't do the third step because it's not real. You know, because what did it say in the book? As soon as that third step prayer is over, it says, next we launch on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which I never attempted before, you know, and probably most of you didn't either. So, you know, I do those things, and then I get to make right with the world, you know, in the 8th and 9th step, and then I get to do these things. I get to start taking inventory and looking at my life, you know, having spot check inventory, daily inventory, and like my friend Louis here, I have to, like I said, stare at him the whole meeting. I love this guy. I love a lot of you people, actually. I mean, I love all of you, but I love you from knowledge of who you are, many of you. We argue over like, that's 10 step, no, that's 11 step, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, really, my bottom line is, I don't really care as long as you're doing it and it works, you know. Am I doing it? Is it working? Yeah. So for me, you know, a 10th step is a nightly inventory. Where was I selfish, dishonest, resentful, afraid? What did I add to the stream of life? That kind of thing, you know. And I share that with my sponsor via text. I do it at least 6 days a week. And then I have a morning routine, you know, so it bookends my day. And then, you know, I get to sponsor people and all that good stuff. I love sponsoring people. It's like the cake of this program. I don't know if you like cake. I like donuts from Randy's Donuts. They're my favorites. It's the Randy's Donuts for me. And you don't even know, you know, it's like, here's the one that scared me. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we might meet their needs. I was like 20 days sober when I said that, and I go, oh man, I cannot do that. Don't you know there's a lot going on with me, and I don't have time to be thinking about you. And it's not like I really felt it's like selfish. I was just like, I have so many problems. You don't understand, you know? And what I've understood by doing this thing and carrying the message is that often my problems are alleviated. I can see them reflected in somebody else, and I can see solutions for myself. When I work with somebody else, I have spiritual communion with another human being. I can see that I can make a difference in another person's life. I also don't have to think about myself for like 45 minutes or an hour. And all those things are awesome things. They really are. And I never would have believed it. You know, there's tons of paradoxes in this program. Surrender to win, stuff like that. Drawing a blank on more now. But anyways, there are. And so, you know, and the story of my sobriety is I've been married and divorced in sobriety. I've lost both my parents. I got fired from jobs. I also started a business that I've had for like 30 years. And when I got here, I used to say I was unemployable. It was more like I just didn't go to work. So I don't know if I was employable or not because I didn't hang around long enough to find out. And this is an illustration. So when I got sober, I started working in telemarketing because I had no job skills. Somebody in the program picked me up every day and took me with them to work. And then we would go to the noon meeting at the Hermoso Olano Club. I actually got pretty good at that, and I started managing a place, but then my ego took over, and I got fired and did some outside sales, but I couldn't handle rejection, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, I had gone to school on and off at El Camino. Like I had this like transcript that's like 100 miles long with lots of W's on it. But a lot of completed PE classes. So I decided to go back to school and really figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. I didn't really have a particular course or a specific path in mind. So, I went back to El Camino, qualified to get into UCLA. So I was looking for a part-time job. I got into UCLA, and I found one, and then I needed another one, and I'm at a meeting one time, and one of my friends says, "Hey, I want you to meet," I'm going to call him Steve. That's not necessarily his name. "I want you to meet Steve. He's new." And I start talking to Steve. Steve is new, and he's got 3 DUIs, and he can't drive himself. So he needs somebody to drive him around. So he's willing to pay me to drive him around. And so I started driving him around. And because he was an egomaniac alcoholic, he paid me way more than he should have, but he wanted to look cool. So that was a benefit of it too. But Steve got busier, and I started helping him in the office with stuff, and I found that like this particular profession like really suited some of my skills and some of my desires for how it occurred. The makeup of it, inside, outside, analytical, but also people, was a mix of a lot of things. And I found a career, and I was never going to go into this profession. I had been exposed to it because I had like done something for I'm a real estate appraiser. So I had done something for another appraiser. I'd taken some pictures for him one time. So I never thought about like I'd want to do this. But because I kept taking the next indicated action like they tell me to do with the steps, God put me in the right place, And so now I did that, and that guy that I worked for, he went in and out of program for like 5 years. I ended up going to Al-Anon because of him and because of myself, but he was my qualifier, right? And then I finally, got the balls to start my own business in 1999, and I've had it ever since. So, it tells me again and again. That's what I'm always saying to people. What's the next indicated action? People I sponsor, people I talk to. Where are you in the steps? What are you doing about that? Do you have commitments? Are you being of service in other ways? So, that happened. And when I got sober, I said my parents were pretty normal, but I was really resentful at them because, I was a spoiled asshole. And my dad came to a family group down there at Redgate Hospital in my first 30 days, and they asked him the counselor asked him his opinion about something about me, and he said it, and I don't remember what it was, but in front of all these families, I went off on him, and I called him every name in the book, F you, you're an F and F and F and F and F and F and, and just was not cool, and especially in front of all these other people. And so we had some healing to do, but by working the steps, I made amends to him. When I was a little over 4 years sober, he had a massive stroke. He became an invalid. I assisted in his care for a couple years, and then he had another stroke. And I I tell this story all the time. You probably already heard it if you heard me speak, but he had a second stroke. It was clear he was not going to survive, and he was actually at what used to be South Bay Hospital, and I went to see him. I did not know he was going to die that day, but he told me, like, I've had a good life. I'm in too much pain. And I said, Dad, I'm really proud to be your son. And that was the last thing I ever said to him. Now, I wasn't there when he died. I left, and before I came back, he was gone. But that was given to me by you guys, that revolution in our relationship, And my mom had else. I was talking to my friend Dennis over here. He knew my mom because my dad had that stroke, like I was saying. His dad had a stroke, and he was in a support group with my mother. But my mom had Alzheimer's. She passed away 10 and a half years ago. But for the last 3 or 4 years, that was really, really challenging. And I was the I was the young adult that used to steal money from her purse. I was the kid or the son that would, call her from jail. I was the son that she finally said, no, I'm not going to help you. She had to say that to the child that she loved. And what happened here is, I was able to be there for her, And I remember, and this is really important to me because it's a lesson for me, Alzheimer's. I don't know how many of you have been exposed to people with it that you care about, but after a while, it's hard for them to really have logical, linear conversations. And towards the end of her life, I would go see her. We had her in a place like a mile from my home, and we couldn't really talk. And like I felt like I should be doing something. Like this should work differently. That we should have connection, whatever. And what I finally figured out is like, no, dude, it's not about the results you want. It's about showing up, And I don't, it's like. When I go to meetings, I don't like, it's a meeting that I'm committed to, I don't think about, do I feel like it today? I just go. I don't think about my feelings, I'm not saying feelings don't need to be dealt with, but my actions are dictated by the person I want to be, not what I feel like today, And that's not 100% true. I make mistakes, I fall short, but it's 90% plus true. And I'm so grateful for that lesson that you guys taught me, And if you're new, come and join us. Just give it a try. And sit down with somebody. What worked for me is sitting down with somebody who understood the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, understood the steps, had done them thoroughly, and practiced these principles in their lives. Because there's something that happens when I do that, My life changes, and it doesn't mean I get perfect. I'm a long way from perfect. I have plenty of sobriety stories where I did crazy, dumb things. Believe me. But I will tell you today that, like, the relationships in my life that are important to me, they're all in order. I don't hate anybody. I mean, there's people I don't care for that much, and I mostly don't associate with them. But if I do, I'm civil to them because I can be. And there's tons of people that care about me, and there's tons of people that I care about. Yeah. So I am so grateful. How long do I have here? Because I can tell jokes. Okay, that was a good joke, by the way. I have one. I'm going to tell this, and then I'm going to go back to something serious for a second. So a guy walks into a bar, and you may have heard this in a particular meeting, because I heard it in that meeting like a year ago. But a guy walks into a bar. He walks up to the bartender. He says, "Bartender, give me a shot of tequila." And the bartender gives him a shot of tequila. He takes the shot of tequila and he pours it on the bar. He says, "Give me 3 more." Bartender gives him 3 more. He pounds all 3 of them. The bartender goes, "Why did you toss out the first one?" He said, "My sponsor told me never take the first drink." So there's an excuse for you guys. Yeah. And that illustrates for me, it's like, this, Alan read it, this disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It's not a disease based on logic. I mean, if it was, none of us would need to be here, number one, and even if we needed a little support, we would have got here a long time ago, because we could have seen how our lives were affected by this and the lives of people we cared about. Honey, don't take the car, you'll kill yourself. Remember that one if you're old enough? And, normal people don't typically understand that, and that's okay. Why should they? They don't suffer from it, but we do. And so if you feel like that, if you wonder why you make the choices you make, we're here for you. We care, and we'll do whatever we can to help you. I love the people I sponsor. The one benefit of, I'd like to look for silver linings, the whole COVID thing, is that my sponsees and we started a Zoom meeting on Wednesday nights, and then it went from my sponsees to their sponsees and possibly their sponsees, et cetera, et cetera. So we do that every week, and one of our guys with his wife is watching from Texas right now, so that's benefited, and it makes it so that it's easier for us to get together because we're not all in the same place. But I love the community that we have and the support, and if you're a young, I don't care what age, find your people, in here. I found a group of guys that were basically in my age group that were serious about recovery, and we hung out together and we did stuff. And a lot of it was stupid. Like we go to Mr. Pockets and drink Jolt Cola and play pool till like 1 a.m. And then for a while, we had this place. My last name's Hammer. My friend's name was Hacker. So it was the Hacker Hammer Foundation, like a wrestling duo. But we would, we would go to Rosa's in Hermosa. And then there used to be a video arcade next door. We go there. Then we go to the 5th Tradition Men's Stag at Clark Stadium. Then we come back to our apartment and play poker till 1 a.m. on Monday night. And, have neighbors complain and stuff. But we were like, it was my boys, you know what I mean? And we were tight. And so I love those guys. And we've done all kinds of things. I've been involved in International Conference of Young People in AA a long time ago. All California AA, young people in AA. And I'll say I had 5 guys that I was close to. 2 of them are still sober, and the other 3 all died from the disease. But it took them a long time, too. I mean, one of them was 7.5 years, and he went in and out for like 10 years. Another one was 11 or 12 years, and he went out and he died 3 or 4 years later. And then my friend Bob had 20 years, and he didn't actually die directly. He died from using needles. He had hepatitis C, and he got liver cancer, but he never treated it because he started drinking again, and he didn't want to deal with it. And I lost all those guys, and I've lost sponsees, and I've also watched a lot of people die with the fucking love of Alcoholics Anonymous around them, and I love that, our friend Denise, who's another Manhattan Beach person like me, that's how I want to be. I want my life to be a celebration, not a tragedy. And the people that I know in Alcoholics Anonymous who really do this and build a community around them, their lives are celebrations when they go. And I love that. So thank you so much for listening tonight. I've had a great time being with you.